Charlie Kirk wasn't just another political commentator, he was a storm in human form. To his supporters, he represented courage, standing up against what he saw as the dangers of liberal ideology. To his critics, he was a symbol of division, a man who thrived on stirring controversy and picking fights in the public square. From a young age, Charlie carved out a space for himself in America's heated political arena. He wasn't a career politician, but his voice carried weight, especially among young conservatives. He co-founded Turning Point USA, an organization aimed at bringing conservative values into college campuses, an environment that many on the right believed had long been dominated by liberal thinking. And it worked. Charlie's fiery speeches and quick-tongued debates gained him both a devoted following and a long list of enemies. College students across the country often challenged him, but he thrived in those confrontations, turning heated Q&A sessions into viral moments that spread across social media. For every person who praised him as a truth-teller, there was another who accused him of spreading misinformation or stoking hate. His strong stances on issues like immigration, religion, and LGBTQ+ rights weren't just opinions, they were lightning rods, sparking outrage and heated arguments wherever his name was mentioned. But that was the paradox of Charlie Kirk. The more controversial he became, the more attention he attracted. And in today's world, attention is power. By 2025, Charlie was preparing what he called his American Comeback Tour, a series of speeches aimed at reestablishing himself as one of the most influential voices on the political right. He framed it as a way to reignite the flame of freedom. But for his critics, it was just another chance for him to spread what they considered dangerous rhetoric. What no one realized at the time, however, was that this tour would not only reignite debates, it would end in tragedy and turn Charlie Kirk into the center of one of the most shocking crimes in modern political history. September 10th, 2025. For Charlie Kirk, it was supposed to be the beginning of a powerful return to the spotlight. For thousands of students at Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah, it was shaping up to be a day they would never forget, though not for the reasons they expected. Charlie's comeback tour had been promoted for weeks, drawing both excitement and outrage. Some students started a petition to block him from speaking, arguing that his presence would bring more division than dialogue. But in the end, their efforts fell short. The event went forward. That afternoon, nearly 3,000 people packed into the venue. A sprawling white tent was set up, shielding the stage and audience from the blazing Utah sun. Security, surprisingly light for such a controversial figure, was posted in only a few areas. Most assumed it would be just another fiery debate, another back and forth between Charlie and college students who dared to challenge him. Charlie sat calmly under the tent, microphone in hand, fielding questions from attendees. It was his signature style, taking on tough questions, debating critics face to face, and sparking reactions that would later dominate news headlines. Cameras captured the energy of the crowd, the excitement, the tension. Then, at exactly 12:22 p.m., it happened. Charlie had just finished answering a heated question about one of his most controversial talking points. He leaned back slightly in his chair when suddenly a sharp crack echoed across the campus. At first, many thought it was something minor, maybe a firecracker, maybe a microphone glitch. But within seconds, the truth became horrifyingly clear. Charlie's body jerked backward, his hand reaching instinctively for his neck. Blood began pouring down his shirt as gasps erupted from the audience. Panic swept through the crowd. Students screamed, chairs toppled over, and people rushed in every direction, desperately trying to escape what had instantly transformed from a political event into a nightmare. Charlie Kirk collapsed, fatally wounded. The chaos on the ground was undeniable, but the real mystery was unfolding above in a place no one had thought to look, because the gunman had chosen his position carefully. The shot that ended Charlie Kirk's life didn't come from inside the tent. It came from above. High up in a parking garage overlooking the campus, hidden among the concrete beams, the gunman had been waiting. He wasn't some random protester who had slipped past security. This was a calculated setup, carefully planned and chillingly precise. Authorities later confirmed that the shooter had an AR-style rifle equipped with a scope. From his elevated position, he had a clear line of sight straight into the white tent where Charlie sat. The distance was nearly 150 yards, but for a trained marksman, it was an easy shot. The bullet ripped through the air, striking Charlie in the carotid artery. Medical teams rushed in almost instantly, but the wound was catastrophic. Within minutes, the 31-year-old conservative firebrand who had built his life on fiery words and unshakable confidence was gone. The shooter didn't stick around. Witnesses reported seeing a figure retreating deeper into the garage just seconds after the shot rang out. Sirens blared across the campus, police scrambled, and SWAT teams stormed the area. But the sniper had vanished. The university, once buzzing with the energy of debate, was now locked down like a war zone. Students huddled under desks, helicopters circled overhead, and all across social media, grainy cell phone videos of the chaos spread like wildfire, racking up millions of views within hours. What made the scene even more shocking was its chilling precision. This wasn't a spray of bullets, it wasn't a chaotic attack, it was one shot, one kill. Whoever pulled that trigger knew exactly what they were doing. By nightfall, the name Charlie Kirk wasn't just trending in political circles, it was the #1 story in the world. And behind the headlines, the big question was already forming: who was the sniper and why did they want Charlie Kirk dead? The hunt for Charlie Kirk's killer began immediately. Within minutes of the shot, police sealed off the parking garage and surrounding blocks. Dozens of officers combed every floor, weapons drawn, expecting to corner the sniper, but what they found was nothing. No shell casings, no weapon, no trace of the shooter. It was as if he had melted into thin air. The only clue came from shaky security footage that captured a figure in dark clothing leaving the garage through a side stairwell just minutes after the shooting. The suspect's face was obscured, his stride calm and deliberate. Authorities said it looked less like a man fleeing a crime scene and more like someone executing the final step of a mission. That detail alone sent conspiracy theories spiraling. Was this a lone wolf attacker fueled by political rage, or was it something far more coordinated? Some reports suggested the sniper had insider knowledge, choosing a perfect perch with a direct line of sight into the tent. Critics argued it would have been nearly impossible to plan without inside help. Federal agents were soon swarming the area. The FBI joined local police, while the Department of Homeland Security quietly dispatched teams to Texas, treating the incident as a possible act of domestic terrorism. But here's where things got even more unsettling. Despite the heavy presence of cameras, drones, and forensic teams, not a single fingerprint or trace of DNA was recovered. Even the weapon, expected to be a high-powered rifle, was never found. The sniper hadn't just disappeared, he had erased himself. By the next morning, news outlets weren't asking whether he'd be caught. They were asking if he was even catchable at all. And as investigators struggled with dead ends, online speculation took over, pointing fingers in every direction, from radical leftist groups to shadowy government operatives. And then came the detail that made everything even murkier. Reports surfaced that 2 other men had been seen entering the same garage earlier that morning, carrying what appeared to be large black duffel bags. Were they part of the operation, or just bystanders caught up in the frenzy? Nobody knew for sure, but one thing was clear: this wasn't just a murder investigation anymore. It was shaping up to be something much bigger, darker, and far more complex. And the deeper investigators dug, the more disturbing the picture became. When official answers ran dry, the internet filled the silence. Within hours of the shooting, theories started spreading faster than investigators could shut them down, and some of them were chilling. One of the first theories claimed the attack was politically motivated. Charlie Kirk had built his reputation as a firebrand, taking on universities, liberals, and even fellow conservatives with an uncompromising style. Enemies weren't hard to find, and some believed one of them had finally decided to silence him. But then another narrative took hold. This wasn't just personal, it was strategic. Kirk wasn't only a commentator, he had deep connections to political donors, grassroots organizations, and rising Republican candidates. Was someone trying to cripple a movement by cutting off one of its most outspoken leaders? Others weren't convinced it was political at all. Whispers online pointed towards something darker, claiming the sniper's precision and clean getaway were the trademarks of professional training. Some even suggested military or intelligence ties. On fringe forums, users went further, alleging it could have been a state-sponsored hit, designed to destabilize America during a heated election season. And then came the wildest speculation of all, claims that it was an inside job. People noted how the shooter's line of sight was too perfect, almost as if the tent had been positioned for him. Some even argued campus security's slow reaction hinted at foreknowledge, or worse, cooperation. Of course, none of these claims were proven. Investigators kept repeating the same line: "We are following every lead," but the vagueness only fueled more suspicion. Adding fuel to the fire, a mysterious anonymous post appeared on an underground forum just 2 days later. The user claimed they had insider knowledge, and hinted the shooter had been paid a massive sum to carry out a political cleansing. No proof, no evidence, just a cryptic message. But within hours, screenshots of the post were everywhere. Was it just a troll chasing clout, or a breadcrumb from someone who knew too much? Nobody could say for sure. What was certain was this: the more people speculated, the more the truth seemed to slip away. And in that vacuum of uncertainty, Charlie Kirk's death became more than a tragedy. It became a mystery that threatened to spiral out of control. And just when the public thought they had heard it all, new revelations about Kirk's final days surfaced, painting a picture that was even stranger than anyone expected. In the weeks leading up to his death, Charlie Kirk was as busy as ever, hosting events, giving interviews, and sparring with opponents online. But those closest to him later revealed that something about his behavior had shifted. Friends said he appeared restless, distracted, and unusually cautious. He often spoke in fragments, cutting off conversations as if he was holding something back. A colleague recalled him saying, "Cal, you don't know how deep this goes," Docano, but refused to elaborate. Even stranger, Kirk had reportedly canceled several appearances at the last minute, citing security concerns. This was unusual for him. He thrived on confrontation and rarely backed down from critics, so why was he suddenly pulling away? There were also whispers about private phone calls. According to leaks later reported in the media, Kirk had been receiving anonymous threats in the weeks before the shooting. The messages weren't vague. They were chillingly specific, referencing the time and place of his upcoming events. Kirk's team downplayed these warnings at first, treating them as nothing more than the usual backlash that came with being a controversial figure, but his body language told a different story. At one event, a supporter recalled seeing him glance repeatedly at rooftops and windows as if scanning for something only he expected. Then there was the detail that fueled even more speculation. Just 3 days before his death, Kirk reportedly held a closed-door meeting with two undisclosed individuals at a Dallas hotel. No one knows what was discussed, but staff who were present claimed Kirk left the meeting looking pale and shaken. Some believe he had discovered something, maybe about politics, maybe about powerful enemies, that left him feeling cornered. Others argue it was nothing more than the stress of nonstop controversy. But when the sniper's bullet cut through that tent in Texas, the meaning of those final days changed forever. Suddenly, every canceled event, every nervous glance, and every cryptic remark looked less like paranoia, and more like a man who knew his time was running out. And as investigators pieced together his last movements, one disturbing question lingered. Did Charlie Kirk know he was about to die? The moment news broke that Charlie Kirk had been killed, America seemed to split down the middle. Within hours, campuses, social media feeds, and political circles were consumed by the shock. At first, disbelief. Videos from inside the tent showed stunned students screaming, security rushing in, and EMTs fighting to stop the bleeding. But by the time those clips hit Twitter, the headlines were already live. Charlie Kirk shot dead in Texas. The reaction was immediate and polarizing. Supporters flooded timelines with grief and outrage. To them, Kirk wasn't just a commentator. He was a fighter who gave voice to a generation of conservatives. Candlelight vigils appeared outside Turning Point USA chapters, while thousands posted hashtags like #JusticeForCharlie and #FreeSpeechMartyr. But critics didn't stay silent either. Some political opponents, while condemning the violence, pointed out how Kirk had built his career on fiery rhetoric and division. Others accused media outlets of using his death to score political points, calling the coverage exploitative and weaponized. The government's response was equally intense. The governor of Texas declared a state of while the White House released a carefully worded statement calling the assassination an attack on democracy itself. Within 24 hours, Homeland Security raised the national threat level, warning of possible copycat incidents. Cable news channels ran wall-to-wall coverage. Fox News treated Kirk as a fallen warrior, broadcasting montages of his speeches, while CNN hosted endless panels debating whether his rhetoric had contributed to his fate. Social media became a battlefield of memes, hashtags, and conspiracy threads, and as the narrative spiraled, so did the stakes. Protests erupted on college campuses, some in support of Kirk, others celebrating his absence. Tensions boiled into clashes, forcing police to break up violent confrontations. For days, it felt less like a single tragedy and more like the spark of something much larger, a nation on edge, teetering between grief and rage. Meanwhile, the one question that mattered most, who killed Charlie Kirk and why, remained unanswered. Just a day after the shocking attack, a stunning twist came to light. On the night of September 11th, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson allegedly admitted to his own father that he was behind the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Imagine the weight of that moment, a father, himself a 27-year veteran of the sheriff's department, looking at his son and realizing he might be the man on the FBI's wanted posters. Tyler, according to reports, said he would rather end his own life than face the consequences of turning himself in. But his father, torn between duty and family, convinced him to take another path. Instead of running, he urged Tyler to speak with a trusted friend in the U.S. Marshal Service. By late that night, Tyler Robinson was in custody, facing charges of aggravated murder, felony discharge of a firearm, and obstruction of justice. What started as whispers of speculation had now turned into a chilling reality. Charlie Kirk's alleged killer had confessed to his own father.